Hello, listening people.
Hello.
What was that?
Hello.
What?
Hello.
Hello. Hello.
What, you can't hear what I'm saying?
Talk to me, please, Bartek, in a normal way that everyone can
I
understand.
let you in, Ryan.
No, in Polish. That's what I'm saying. Talk to me in Polish. Could you do that?
Chodź tutaj, Ryan.
What does that mean?
Chodź tutaj.
Ah, of course, I know what you're saying.
Okay,
exactly.
mów coś.
Thank you. We'll move along.
Dobrze.
Thank you very much. What's good morning in Polish?
Dzień dobry.
Dzień dobry.
It's the Borat line.
Oh, it is?
Dzień dobry.
You know what's very funny? I was talking to someone a little while ago for my other podcast that I hosted with my wife. We had some a German guest on, and he did like a bunch of greetings.
Mm-hmm.
And he threw that one in the middle of them. And I'm like, is that a Polish one? Or do they also say that in Germany? I don't know. I don't know if he was just throwing us a bone. But no, to get serious, to get real, we are Spit and Polish Presents. We are two young spitting gentlemen. We're no longer young. At what point do you say being young is past you now? Once you hit 30, you're no longer young, you're middle?
Young adulthood ends at 35, I think.
Oh, once you go beyond the Christ's age, you're no longer young?
Well, he was 33.
Yeah, I'm saying once you go beyond.
We're still young at 34, don't worry.
Thank you.
35, though, middle-aged.
Middle-aged, so we've got a few years left. So we're still young, and we're both Polish, hence all of the Polish content at the beginning. That's how we keep in the top 10 Polish podcasts. We have to, it's a mandate to do a little bit of Polish culture in the show. So Bartek says good morning. What's good afternoon?
I think they use the same one for morning and afternoon, but once you get to evening, it's dobry wieczór.
It's longer when you get to that one. And good night?
Well, they just say dobry wieczór.
Oh, same. So, like, because good night means two separate things here, right? Like, you could say, like, oh, have a good night, and, like, good night, like, sleep well.
Oh, yeah, we usually say good evening and good night. Well, in Polish, specifically, dzień dobry and dobry wieczór are greetings. You wouldn't use them as, farewells.
This is incredibly spooky, and that's how we're going to end our spooky month with some Polish language lessons, because it is October. It is that time of year in which we like to embrace the more macabre elements of cinema, because we talk about movies on this here podcast. We talk about movies that come recommended on our show Pictures Powwow, where we powwow about pictures that were on the screen. I do miss some of our other podcasting shows. We need to get back to doing the mystery box, where we would get things even spookier from the mystery box.
You know what I really liked about the mystery box? We always had guests.
We did have guests, and, we bring them on for Pictures Powwow. Sometimes they even recommend films. Sometimes they even recommend them. Sometimes I recommend them, and sometimes you recommend them. And, I mean, that's our cycle, isn't it? Where we start off with Bartek recommending a movie, then the week after that it is myself, and then the week after that it is the listening people, and sometimes those listening people get dragged in. Sometimes they get grabbed by the back of the neck, and just dragged along the ground, and we throw them into the recording booth and say, you better speak nice and clearly for everyone to hear who you are. And Bartek, you're responsible for this week's guests, and this week's guest recommended a movie, so please inform us who we've summoned here.
I certainly like responsibility, and this week I am responsible for our good friend Nelson. Hi, Nelson.
Hello, Bartek.
Hi.
How are you?
Good.
I'm here too.
Oh, yes. Hello.
Hello.
I don't know hello in any other languages, so I'll just settle for hello.
Konnichiwa?
Oh, yes. Konnichiwa. Yes.
That's one.
A casual Polish one is cześć.
That's a good one. I've never heard that from you before.
It's basically hi.
Hi.
Hola. Hola. ¿Cómo estás?
Yeah.
Okay, I lied, obviously, straight away.
You actually know bonjour.
You know more than you think. It's like what we learned in media. You already know all this stuff.
It's a little mystery box.
Buongiorno.
So, Nelson, you were here. You were an associate of Bartek. You're one of his allies, minions, perhaps. Would you say you're
don't stretch it.
Would you say you're a goon, perhaps, to Bartek?
Yeah.
Not the Australian term goon, which is in fact a lovely type of wine, but more of a goon in terms of hired muscle.
Absolutely. A goon, maybe even a stooge.
I think I literally played a hired muscle in one of your films once.
You did.
I was wearing like a balaclava.
You remember it more than I do, I think.
I don't know whose house it was, but it was some basement.
I've watched this student film
No, you haven't.
They're talking about.
No.
It's a wonderful film. Oh, no?
No.
Was there another balaclava one you made me watch?
Have I ever shown you a film with a balaclava?
Yes, you have. One of your friends, you made me watch, or was it Reese? There was a student film production in which
That was Reese. That was a beanie, not a balaclava.
Okay, sorry.
I was worried that my content had escaped my archives.
No, I never saw that.
So,
final.
Nelson, you're one of Bartek's high school friends, colleagues, people, and we were told, all of us that listen to this podcast and even participate, that Bartek just happened to run into you, and some conversation started emerging, and now we're here to talk about a movie that you, in fact, recommended. So please tell us a bit about yourself and what movie you lobbed our way.
Yeah, absolutely. So me and Bartek met originally in media and drama class. We're a couple of drama kids at heart, and I definitely dabble in media and that kind of thing, making films, and I've always been a lover of film. It's been quite a while, though, actually, since I kind of gave filmmaking and all that kind of creative stuff a bit of a rest through the dramatic COVID period, and haven't revisited that stuff. So this is kind of a bit of a reopening of that creative brain or mystery box, And at the moment, I think when me and Bartek caught up, we were talking about the podcast, obviously, and he asked if I had a film or anything like that that'd be a good suggestion, and Talk to Me came up, and I think I'd seen that as an Australian indie film and a good kind of a good example, something good to discuss.
Yeah.
It was a new film too. I was actually concerned because Bartek said it and I was like, can we watch it without having to go to the cinema, or is this a cinema outing? Because we haven't done one so relatively hot off the presses, have we, Bartek? We were going to do Ma, but then it never came to Australia, sadly. It was advertised here and then it never released in cinema, and now I own Ma on DVD, ready and waiting for a spooky month to bring her out and about. But
coming next year.
We were going to do two movies at the cinemas. The original Sonic film with the ugly Sonic. We did joke about if we were going to do that.
I thought we were just going to see it.
Well, if we're going to see it, we're going to talk about it. And Ma. And now Talk to Me is the closest, I think. When Bartek said this a couple weeks ago, I looked into it and it was still in some cinemas down here. And I was like, oh boy,
I think I literally talked about it last episode. I told you Nelson's recommended this film, and then you and our friend Will, who saw the message, were like, isn't that in cinemas right now? I'm like, oh no.
No.
But it is no longer, at least down here. It may be where everyone else is listening, because it first came from Australia. It was at the Adelaide Film Festival, which is promoted at the beginning of the movie. It's one of the opening logos. It's hey, by the way, Adelaide exists. South Australia exists. I'm so used to New South Wales and Victoria getting the little logo at the front of a TV show or movie, because they're the states that usually get the funding to do films and TV shows, and even more recently video games. I play the Moving Out video games, and they're Australian, and they're funded by the Victorian government, and I'm just sitting back going, I don't know if I've ever really seen a video game have we were helped created by a state government things before, so I was like, I'm used to that with movies.
The only thing I can think of related to Adelaide is I remember there was a Jimquisition episode a couple of years ago, some guy was trying to make a GTA clone set in Adelaide, and it was all over a current affair, this is awful, how dare they do this?
Because Australia,
it was called P-platers or something.
Because we are known for being a nation that is really, really relaxed about video game violence. We just love easy access to video games that are incredibly violent and sexual. That's a joke, of course. But we're talking about Talk to Me, a new film from obviously 2022/2023. This is a film that was directed and created and written by, does not star, surprisingly, the creative team of the YouTube channel Raka Raka, who they've been around for a very long time. That YouTube channel has been around the block. They've had quite the success, and they've finally moved into the filmmaking industry. They've pretty much been making movies on their YouTube channel. They've always been very prestigious in that industry on YouTube, because when they do their sketches, because they're sketch comedy, they really have a very a great flair for the cinematic approach, especially when it comes to action. And so it was actually quite a surprise in my eyes from the minimal, I'll say minimal consumption of their content, that they have done a horror film as their debut instead of an action movie. And a horror film that does have some cool stunts in it, but it's not really a physical action set piece. It's actually quite a slow-moving, methodical, urban legend type. So
Be like if Smosh did a war drama.
yeah, it's like if Shane Dawson did a horror film. Oh wait, he did do a horror movie. And it was bad. It was called Smiley. But yes, this is an example of a good YouTuber movie.
I was thinking that while watching it, because I haven't seen any of them, but I've seen like all the I Hate Everything
You've seen
videos.
all of the Channel Awesome videos, movies, right?
Oh, yeah, I've seen those. But those weren't like released for profit, I don't think.
I mean,
they were sold later down the line.
That's released for profit. That's still a movie.
But they were freely uploaded online.
Look, is Talk to Me as good as the Linkara movie? No, it isn't.
I haven't seen that. You've seen more of that than I have.
Atop of the Fourth Wall, the movie, it's not as good. But just to give everyone a bit of notice, we will be talking about Talk to Me in more detail, more depth. But if you have not had the chance to watch it, we recommend that you do. Bartek, how would you sell this movie to someone who is not deeply familiar? I was really unaware of what the contents of the movie was. I only knew who made it. That was the appeal. I saw the poster. And I kind of rolled my eyes and went, oh, yeah, it's one of these movies. Like one of these, like Smile. Or one of those, like, oh, it's a...
Most of what I knew was based on what you were saying last episode. And I really listened to that last night. And yeah, you mentioned something like, oh, it's about like a hand. Like teenagers find a hand. And like the thing that I immediately jumped to was, you know, the great unappreciated masterpiece. Oh, God, I'm blanking the name. It was in my head just a moment ago. Wish Upon.
Yes, I thought about Wish Upon as well.
Yeah, where Wish Upon is it's a great film, Nelson. Oh. It's so bad it's good kind of thing.
I haven't seen it.
It's based on the Chinese monkey paw legend thing. So obviously, you know, people make wishes and there's like but there's a twist to the wishes kind of thing. So when I heard that this film was about a hand too, I thought, oh, okay, is it going to be something like that where it's like, oh, normal people with this mystical item, and then, you know, shit goes wrong. And, like, on paper, I was right, but the approach was fairly different.
Yes, so Talk to Me is very much a modern-day urban legend type story.
Yeah.
Some teenagers, some young people stumble across a mystical item that grants them the ability to commune with the dead, and they mess with things in a way that they should not. Also, it's a story about addiction. So there you go.
Yeah.
Enjoy, go watch it for yourself, because we're going to get into more details of this. Now, Bartek, you and I, no familiarity with this before coming in. Like, outside of just the creators involved and maybe even a poster, really had nothing to it. You hadn't even heard about Talk to Me. This isn't one of those movies of the year that has crossed your radar.
I hadn't heard of it. I don't know how aware I was of the YouTube channel Rucka Rucka. When you and Will told me that, like, oh, that's in cinemas at the moment, you know, that was news to me. I'm like, but it says 2022 on Wikipedia.
Because it was at a film festival last year. This time last year. Why? I'm actually surprised that you never saw Rucka Rucka, because they seem like something up your alley a bit. Like they are really interesting. I would recommend them. They were never my favorite YouTube channel, but they did a lot of cool stuff, especially in the context of the time they came out. Like, if you watch their stuff from like early 2010s and compare it to Nostalgia Critic, it's kind of amazing of like who can use special effects to make a joke work.
Well, who knows? Maybe at some point someone showed me something of it, but I've no recollection.
Nelson, you're the one who lobbed this, recommended this, put it on the desk, and tell us a bit about your history with this film. Did you see this in the cinema? Are you familiar with the creators involved? Your thoughts on it overall?
Yeah, absolutely. So I was very familiar with Rucka Rucka's work. I was an early subscriber. Funnily enough, in high school, probably was in 2010, the time where I ingested most of their content on the regular. And then I think they evolved from their kind of backyard wrestling and action-based and pop culture-based content to, I think I kind of lost track with them around 2012, 2013, where they went over to the States and they got fairly they became more of a commercialized product. And they're in with like the Logan Paul and all those kind of things, and I kind of lost interest, funnily enough. And I think it was fairly recently, probably around 2012, 2022, 2023, funnily enough, where their promotions probably started popping up on my YouTube and on my TikTok and all that kind of thing. And I'm like, oh, Raka Raka, is that a YouTube channel from 10 years ago that's managed to stay relevant and evolve? That's very interesting. And of course, because they're Australian, there's a part of me that's like, oh, maybe they're good. Maybe, I hope they're good. If they're, and I hope they're successful. Because as someone myself who like dreams of making, content on themselves and becoming popular and all that kind of thing, it's just a little bit of a fantasy. So seeing other people achieve, that's always, always exciting.
Yeah.
So I saw that and, I jumped on, I think it was Amazon Prime or something. I'm just giving all these plugs away. But, watched it and I was surprised. It had a fairly cliche premise that, we can, you're instinctively rolling your eyes at another kind of teenagers do something naughty and, the occult and all that kind of thing. But it was fairly tight the way it was written, the way it was done. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, I was also not looking forward to like the premise of it because it did have a lot of those cliche things from when it started, but also even the promotional material, like the poster I made fun of last week. I said, oh, I saw the image of the spooky hand, and I said, I don't need to see that. And our guest last episode, one of them said, oh, did you not want to see it because you would be scared? I'm like, oh, no, modern movies don't scare me. And because there's just a glut of these type, and I actually said like, oh, Blumhouse. I was actually surprised to see it's an A24 movie, or at least adjacent to them. But I really am not as big into like modern horror as much. Even some of the more slow, dready, artsy-fartsy A24 type horror movies, I'm like, I can take them or leave them. But I got over that hump as the movie went along. I was really enamored with the filmmaking and the acting. I thought it was really spectacular. And having to remind myself that this is a debut, this is a first feature-length film for these creators, and yet they bring in an experience and a voice of people who have made many movies. And of course they have in their own right. Their YouTube channel is an example of that, where they're basically creating short films, and they've been in the industry, but they just have such a level of expertise. The craftsmanship is something to admire, and the straight-faced approach to what is basically a well-trodden story is appreciated. It actually kind of makes me think of things like Hellraiser or something back in the day, where you have something that is perhaps familiar, but it has its unique little flares, but it's presented with such an honesty in its artistry that you can't help but be won over by it. So you could easily see this being handled poorly as a film. Like even the premise of it, of like this ceramic hand that grabs you and all of that, you could see how this could be Blumhouse's Truth or Dare or Smile or a whole bunch of those kind of movies where they just have their gimmick, their spooky gimmick. Ooh. And this one really managed to jump over that hurdle also because it focuses in on character and themes. What did you think of it, Bartek?
A lot of very similar thoughts. Yeah, I really love the performances, the filmmaking, the camera work is really great. Really great atmosphere. I like the characters themselves. I liked, and parts of it later on were a little bit undermined, but I liked how well established the whole supernatural thing was early on. Like we had these the characters who were like hosting the parties that were doing it, like had all these rules. Like you really got the sense that they worked out how this all works. And yeah, it was interesting to see that it was. We've done horror films before where they had something like this, even like Wish Upon, where it's like, oh, you see the discovery of this thing and them working it out. But then here, the thing is like a social media sensation kind of thing. So it kind of, it really feels like they're playing around with the whole horror thing of like, oh, the mysterious thing. Like they're kind of making fun of it in a way.
Oh, of course. And it's not taken seriously at all because the supernatural doesn't exist in the real world, most believe. And this is taking place in a facsimile of the real world. But in this case, the dead can be communed with, and you can just cut off a psychic's hand. Or oh, no, it's a devil worshipper, I heard. And
yeah, it's not like that other white people shit.
Yeah. And I really was head over heels for the lead performance. You know it's going to be a good time when a lead character has like an iconic piece of clothing. She's wearing like this big yellow fluffy jacket in the first half of the movie, and I'm like, oh yeah, that's going to be like the visual you'll associate with this character, like yellow as the color, and you'll think of her with her short hair and those big eyes that the actress has, and then they make them even bigger when they have the contacts and whatever kind of makeup and effects. But it's like, you know, you're in for a good time when like your horror movie lead has like iconic piece of clothing. I mean, Bartek, you're a big fan of like, in a way, some horror type games as well, and you kind of get that whether it is from your kind of weird little Japanesey puzzly crap or your Silent Hills or whatever kind of things. Like in video games, you have like the character with their iconic little piece of attire on, and in this movie you get that too. And it's not even nailed down to it's the villain that has it. Like the villain in this is just a hand.
I was gonna say it's like her Michael Myers mask or something like that, but she's not the villain.
No, but sometimes you get that with the protagonist where they have their iconic little outfit.
Well,
like we did like the Escape from New York movie, and it was like he's got his iconic outfit.
When this eventually becomes a long-running media film franchise, this will be the iconic outfit from the first film.
There is a joke that the creators said about like, oh yeah, that actress, she's great. You'll see her again in Talk to Me 5. Like it's going to be the Scream franchise.
I mean, I did read that apparently they're making a sequel and it's Talk number 2 Me.
That's the best way to do it.
Yeah.
That's how you do it. So Nelson, you did not see this in the cinema.
No, I very much a homebody, so if I have the ability to watch it at home, I will. I've had recently too many poor experiences at the cinema with people just on their phone or talking or just generally being present while I'm around, and that's very annoying. So I did enjoy watching this at home, and I think I watched it with a few friends as well. Another night I host a little fortnightly movie night at my house. We watch all kinds of films. And it was very interesting. I find films that are set in Australia with an Australian cast and an Australian setting, I feel like you've got a 50-50 chance of like being, for me anyway, getting like pulled in immediately or like thrown out immediately. Like it either sticks or it doesn't stick. But if it does stick, then I feel like that enhances the you're drawn into it more.
Yeah.
And the horror hits a little bit better and all that kind of thing. But there's been other Australian films where you see it and you just cringe out of your pants and you're just like, oh, this is terrible. But this was, it wasn't people pretending to be Australian. Obviously, it was a full Australian cast, and it was very engaging, I felt. Yeah.
I think previously for Spooky Months we've done Wolf Creek 2 and The Loved Ones.
Yes, both fun films for Australian ones. Yes, and there's something about the Australian sensibility that you can use very effectively for writing characters because we're larrikins. We take things a little bit too easily. We can be very matter of fact as well and kind of jovial and fun. And you put that into your horror movie setting with a bunch of teens, and it really works. Like the opening of this, you get the classic cold open sting of like the previous victim and owner of this item, and how will that connect later in the movie? But the opening is you get the classic scary movie font, like the scratchy writing, and I thought, oh, it's Bye Bye Man. But again, it's done with such sincerity. It manages to overcome the cliches and the tropes of it. But you have the horror movie opening, but it's with the most Aussie guy. Like he has like the long hair. Of course, he's a tradie. You find out later. I'm like, of course he is. Did you see what he looked like? And did you hear him? Did you hear his name? Like him calling out the name all the time. And it was just such a Aussie thing of like these background characters being like, responding, being like, nah, mate, I haven't seen him. And I'm like, yeah, this is fun. This is fun. We have just kind of a fun vibe. And so when you have a movie in which you will have people making dumb decisions, you get the benefit of them being dumb teenagers who are high or drunk. And also they're just Aussies and we're kind of dumb and silly like that. I mean, for yourself, Bartek, we've done a numerous amount of Aussie films on our pod, and there's just something about the Australian culture and identity that just has a certain lightness to it that adds to a film, I think. How do you feel?
Yeah, like you mentioned, like the party there where, it feels very Aussie, it's a tradie and there's casualness. But like even in the like calmer scenes where it's like, the two friends talking to each other, like the two girls like in the bedroom, and there's been like a bit of cheekiness between like, oh look, I'm really sad. This is like a sad traumatic time for me. You need to comfort me right now. There is that sort of like levity to a serious situation. And even with the young guy Riley and his friend, it's like, oh, why are these guys friends? But it's like, oh yeah, they just rib on each other like that a little bit.
And they're growing up in like a shitty town.
Yeah.
There's no one else.
And this isn't so much
Adelaide.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, no, that'll never be a capital city. And like even when I remember there was one scene where you see their high school, and I was just blown away by like, oh my god, this is the most Australian looking school I've ever seen in my life.
Oh, the school uniforms.
Yeah,
well, school uniforms, yeah, but like the very outdoorsy school. It's like, oh, look at all these small buildings that they have to walk between. It's not like the American high school where it's like the one big building with 3 floors. Or whatever.
Oh yeah, but I was even with the uniforms. I was like, oh, she's in her sports uniform and she's not. Like I was having that
the
little
distinction
laugh
between
about
sport
that.
uniform
I was like,
and
oh look, there's a
regular.
sports uniform.
Oh, she's got sport that day. She doesn't.
She doesn't. Yeah, which is interesting because I assume they were in the same grade. And for me, I had sports day in our grade. It was like on the same day for our year. I mean, if you did PE classes, you may have sports stuff, but sports day for us was on like a Wednesday.
Oh, like athletics day.
Yeah, well, yeah. Every Wednesday we'd do like.
Oh, you like PE class day.
Yeah, like our physical. Like we would have to go out and do something.
Right.
At least at our school, because again, I grew up in a rinky-dink little country town, so they're like, get out, go to the pool, go to the lawn bowls, do soccer down the road, do something away from us.
By the time Nelson and I met, we were done with PE.
Yeah, we're assuming these guys are in year 12 and they're studying PE. That's quite a serious
they can
commitment.
drive.
And they can drive. So
one of them is at least.
So one of them's doing PE for their HSC. Whatever
that's fantastic.
I don't know what it is in South Australia. The equivalent of...
well,
it's not VC.
No,
it's
exactly.
Victoria.
Was it SA? Just someone can let us know.
Yeah.
South Australians, let us know. Rucka guys, let us know. I know you're listening to this. You're really on the edge of your seat to hear what we have to say.
In your LA mansion?
Yes. In their Adelaide mansion, perhaps. Who knows? They may still have
3-bedroom house.
Ad LA mansion.
Oh, there you go. Thank you, Bartek. But there was a lot of that Aussie flair. I mean, there was a dead kangaroo at the start of this. Oh, dying.
I think that was quite... I found myself very having to hold myself back when I saw that, because I feel like for any non-Australian audience, they would be like, oh my God, that's horrible. But for most Australians, that would have been like just a typical day on the road. Like, I don't think that would have phased anyone.
Typical day in the Melbourne suburbs?
Yeah, absolutely.
I related to main character's friend the most, the one who's the older sister of Riley. I related to her the most. Yes, I related to her the most because when that scene was happening, I was like, why don't you just call Wires or RSPCA or something? And then immediately, because our main character's like contemplating, like, ooh, do I take them out of their misery? Or like, there's an arc. And then she does it, and she drives away and leaves it to bleed to death and have horrible, horrible pain, which is ironic for her at the end. I laughed because I was like, oh, come on. A real person would not even... Most people wouldn't even do the whole, I'll run over it. It would just be like, oh, I'll just call Wires or RSPCA. They'll deal with it. Like, I know... It's not like she doesn't know where she is. Like, she's right... You are literally in the shot. You see down the road a building. I'm like, come on, you know where you are. Even there's no excuse. And that's what my priority was. I was like, there's no excuse for this.
Even the young guy was like, should we call like a vet?
Yeah, exactly. Call like someone, but then the friend was just like, "Why didn't you call RSPCA?" I'm like, "Thank you, thank you. For fuck's sake, I'm this person. I'm this character. You're our main character. You're weird, and she is very weird. I'll give her that." And I liked very much the choices made with the families in this, because our main character Mia, she's suffering grief and loss of her mother. It's a really harsh backstory.
It's like the 1-year anniversary of the death.
Two I
years.
think. And she is so focused in on her friend's family. We get so much of her friend's family. Like, hey, here's how they work. Here's what the mother does as a job. Here's this. We know their fucking timetable at the end of the movie. Like how she'll be at work at this time, so we can do this. But Mia's dad, we never really get to for 90% of the movie, we barely even get a clear shot of his face. I was really surprised by that because I was like annoyed when I was watching him. Like, I was thinking in my script brain, I was like, oh, well, if you want me to actually care about the dad, you should make him a character, honestly. But it goes into the strength of the movie that she is abandoning her one remaining family to the point in which the film is abandoning him too, because I was taken back. Like in the first scene with him, he's in the background. We don't even see his face, and there's so many other shots where we don't see his face, and we only see his face when the movie really needs to get to it for the spooky stuff. But I could see them be continuously being like, no, this is like an episode, like this is Peanuts. We're not going to show the adults.
This is a character who we only get secondhand information about him from a character who's trying to avoid him. So, and we're empathizing with our main character, presumably. So we walk into this characterization with a bias. And then we see how that gets played with later on when her perception of reality is also in question.
With a spooky movie, they have their thing, whether it's a monster or whether it is a killer or there's a ghost or a demon, and there's a lot of rules. You get here's how the rules work, and you said it, Bartek, we get them established early on, we get one or two twists upon it as the narrative unfolds, but I laughed out loud so much at when she wants to know the history of the ownership of this item, and the guy's like, well, do you want me to get a fucking spreadsheet and we can just do it? Because
the transactions,
in every one of these movies, they have the scene, like Wish Upon has the scene of who was the previous owner of this and where did they get it? And oh my god, this has been a thing that's inflicting pain for generations. Oh no, it's Jumanji. Oh no. And I just laughed at the fact that this movie teased at that scene happening and then said, nah.
Yeah. It also
it's not important.
It also teased the thing of like, oh, there's a right hand out there somewhere.
Ooh.
I think we see that, don't we?
At the end, I'm pretty sure that's what
I
the other hand
rewatched
is.
it and they were shaking left hands, so I think that
You're
was
right, it's left hand.
the
So
new
it's the
owners
same.
of the current hand.
That's funny.
Oh.
Yes, it's out there doing stuff. They indicated it's doing things.
Yeah. Watch Talk 2, the number 2 me.
Where both hands are in it.
And they shake.
Oh, what happens if they did that? They won't be able to say, talk to me. That's what activates it. Because I did have a good chuckle up when they tried to get the comatose boy to talk to them. It was like, hey, he needs to say, talk to me. He won't say it. He's got a fucking tube in his mouth. That was a good try. Talk to him, please. For you, Nelson, what are the type of horror movies that attract you? What are the type of creepy, crawling, darkness, spooky horror things that get under your skin and ones that you like in movies?
Oh, horror films. I've only recently kind of delved into horror films because I'm a bit of a baby, so I only kind of unleash it on my friends when they come over and we all watch one. I think last one that got to me was the Babadook.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that was a good one. I think that was another Australian based. I can't remember.
Yeah,
Yeah. So
I think I read in the tree that the two guys that made this film worked on it in some capacity.
I wouldn't be surprised.
of course,
Yeah.
well, it's a small industry down here. It's probably everyone's worked on everything down that's happened here. Yeah, but like those kind of how would you describe it? Just spooky, scary, psychological horrors. You know, I like. I think this one was more of like a body shock, body horror kind of film. There wasn't a lot of jump scares or moving in the darkness kind of stuff, which I thought was good. I thought it was more of a shock from the violence or from the action happening on set and in the makeup and everything like that, which was all very, very good. And I think they had a few actors there, or at least one actor who was like an old lady, and she just like took her teeth out and they maked her up, and she looked horrified.
Yeah, that was a great moment.
Man, those spirits, they had a good
poor
look to
dental
them.
plans. Yes,
They all looked fucked up and gross, and
They all looked so slimy.
well, one in particular looked very slimy. The
If
one
I
that
touched
stayed
any of
around.
them, I'd need to wash my hands. Yeah.
And you're holding their hands, so there you go. I am a big fan of this approach to the monster stuff, in which it's not really about the spirits, right? The spirits are just a means to an end. They are a means to an end to explore a theme that is universal in this case, which I really took it as this is using all of the spooky, creepy hand to look at addiction, whether it is addiction to substances or addiction to grief or selfishness. Like, the main character becomes an addict to the paranormal. She needs it. She craves it. She wants others to have it, and so that they can get it. It's really hammered in when, no, he's too young to use it. I don't want my young brother doing it.
It's very allegorical at times.
Yeah, but in a way that I found to be enjoyable. I didn't think it was too ham-fisted with it. And it has one of my favorite things too, which is likable, fucked up main character pays for their sins, and they slowly lose their morality, their dignity, their mind. And we know it's happening, and we know, but they are unable to get off the path. They are damned. We are watching a main character who is damned. And I am a sucker for that. I referenced Hellraiser earlier. Those movies do that a lot too, where they've signed a deal with the devil, and you cannot back out of that. And there's going to be innocent people who get hurt along the way for their need to satisfy whatever it is. And in this case, it's her consuming grief that she needs to be fulfilled. Even when she gets the literal answers to the things she wants to know, it's not enough. It's never going to be enough. What is the line? Well, she crossed it, and everyone had to pay for it, and including her, especially her. And I really like the emphasis on character things there. I like that they were unafraid to make her an unlikable person.
Or give her, unlikable decisions to make. I was thinking a lot throughout this film about Starry Eyes, which we did 2 years ago. And this one worked a lot better for me. Like, once the kind of horror-y stuff was happening to our main character, again, like you were saying, I really liked that there was still a whole emphasis about the rest of the cast interacting with our main character. I remember with Starry Eyes, once it kind of started to become like the very body horror kind of thing, it was mostly just our main character alone in a house. Whereas this one, we were seeing the people around her, how they weren't having these visions. They were trying to comprehend, like, what are you going through? What's going on? And just seeing how they were unable to help her in the end. I agree also with you about how, I liked seeing, our likable main character being corrupted by these influences.
She's not a pragmatic person. She's a young person who's a dickhead. She's a real piece of shit.
Well, yeah.
She's not going to do the logical, like, Nightmare on Elm Street thing where it's like, okay, to get Freddy, we must put traps in our dreams and we can bring him out in theory. No. Our main character knows all the magical lore stuff and just throws it to the side because she's so sad that she needs to cure her sadness rather than think things through for a single fucking moment. And Bartek, you're a teacher. Did these children in this movie kind of bring some experiences to your mind? Because I also work in tandem with teens, and I was like, oh boy, these teens, these are real, as we would say in Australia, Dero. Deros, they're real losers. All of them are losers. Like, none of them are cool, except for probably the tradie guy that got stabbed at the beginning. He's like the coolest person.
I don't know, the guys that owned the hand, they had a confidence to them. I could see them.
But then they were losers as the movie went along. It's like, oh, no one actually likes
once
you.
consequences came up to them, they did become a lot more timid, despite their big presences.
I was curious. I thought they were going to be part of the solution, but they quickly kind of just threw the hand at them and said, "Yeah, your problem. Ciao, see you later."
There did come a point where they came back into it for a little bit, like when they went to talk to the brother of the guy from the beginning.
Yeah, they're drug dealers. That's what they are. They're only friends because they have the substance. There's a great joke. I can't remember which comedian it said this, but there's a joke of, when you're an addict of a drug, you have to hang out at your dealer's place and listen to their jokes and have a good time because you need the pot. And if you did not have to do that, you would not be doing that at all. But it's what you have to do. And that's who they are. Like, no one likes these people, but they have a thing that no one else has, which is a creepy hand that gets you all fucked up. And they will do anything. Like, they'll go over the time limit. They'll film you without your permission. They'll do whatever because, hey, We own the hand. We can do whatever the fuck we want. They're garbage. They're real terrible people.
I remember with me, because I mentioned like, oh, I was really impressed how, they had the rules set up of like, okay, we'll time it for the 90 seconds, and they were always very consistent with that. They were always consistent with, all right, when the 90 seconds is coming up, you got to pull the hand off, and sometimes they struggled with it, but they always managed to do it, and then as soon as it comes off, they blow out the candle. But then once the young boy starts to do it and they start to like change up the rules a little bit, you start seeing it slip. Like they don't even remember if they blew out the candle, things like that.
I mean, literally the first time we see the hand used, they fucked up their own rule because they had her on for longer than 90 seconds. Hence, the drowned ghost is haunting her throughout the rest of the movie. That's what my interpretation of it is. I don't know if you got that from the movie.
Yeah.
Who was the first one that used the hand again?
Our main character.
Yeah,
Mia.
she was.
Oh, didn't we see one before that, like on the phone?
Oh, but I'm talking about like when we actually get to see
If
the
you meant
effects of it. Like when we actually get to see the proper usage of the hand.
Okay, I agree. I thought there was one beforehand, but
we see a guy freaking out on the phone, and it's like, that's crazy, but like, you know what I'm talking about.
I know. But the main character has the possession throughout the film.
And they fucked it up.
Yeah.
She went over 90 seconds, and then she's haunted by the ghost that she let in.
But to be fair, that was the best one ever.
Yeah.
They said that.
Yeah, it was.
And I think that's a theme in most horror films, that the character that's in the most despair and grief or sad are the most vulnerable, and then she's the one that got affected most, probably because the spirit identified her as being in that state. And I think the drowned ghost or the drowned spirit is the established antagonist in this film, whether you catch it the first time or not. You might not, I think, because it does do the classic kind of horror trope twist where she's got her mother talking to her through the ghost, and we're going, was this actually the mother, or is it some kind of is it a spirit playing a trick? But there are a few scenes throughout the where we see the mother spirit representation, and she's hurt, but when she's really going in for the manipulation, you can see it on the makeup, like this water, and she's making go, and you can see it, hear it in the audio, and you can see. So I didn't catch it the first time, so I fell for the the mother's just trying to, what a good idea, like what a nice ghost.
No,
yeah, but the second time, yeah, absolutely, and that's it's quite good because that's quite a layered narrative and it's quite well done, and kind of leads to these characters and how a lot of them have like this pre-done backstory, that they seem like fairly in-depth characters that have been written well. Not everything's spoon-fed to the audience and explained painfully. There's I think one of the things I came away from the second time is Jade's mother, that character, and she's just like angry the whole time, like always, and there's no dad, and like there seems to be some kind of weird tension there that just never gets explained.
Get your shit off the table while he's already packing up.
I side with the mother in this movie. Everything she said and did, I was like, yeah, that's apparent. And then, in fact, I disagreed with her when she let Mia back in the room. I'm like, no. You should not have backed down from your anger. I mean, I get it. She said they tested, there were no drugs. I shouldn't have been angry at you for that. But I'm like, no.
She was so much calmer in that scene. I thought that was like part of the hallucination.
There are some weird choices, and we'll get there. But I like the manipulation aspect of the spirits in this, in which they say if we go over 90 seconds, one will stay with you. They'll stay with you because they want to be, they want to linger and stay. And so she goes over that 90 seconds, and the rest of the movie, instead of it just being that one scene in particular where the drowned spirit is in the corner and she crawls over and she's possessed our main character to suck the boy's feet, the ghost uses the images of people she knows, specifically her mother, to manipulate her into doing things that the demonic or the spirits want. So they want the Riley character to die so that they could have his soul, they could do whatever, they can keep it. Because the rule is, the longer that they're there for, the less their power is sustained and the more that they'll just be thrown off over time. And that is, I believe, still the case at the end of the movie, but these spirits are like, no, we want this young boy. He's so tasty and lovely. We want to, if you kill him for us, he'll stay with us. So go kill him. But I'll say it in a way where it's like,
that
I'm your
makes sense.
mother, and I'm saying it like, you got to help him. It's so sweet. And it's so, the mother backstory is an interesting one as well, just on a dramatic level. I think it is something that people who have lost family members or friends to an incident that it's hard to tell if it was suicide or not are left wondering if it was indeed on purpose or was accidental. And it's one that I don't see get used too often in a narrative of that type of grief in particular, in which it's like, did you take your own life, or was it an actual accident? And we get several interpretations of it during the course of events. I believe the dad and the note he read, but there were also things about like how they found the mother with her nails scratched up, and she was trying to get there. So there's a mystery there, but at the center of it is such a tragic event that I can't help but feel sympathy for our main character. It is also held up because our main character is played by an actress who is doing such a phenomenal job that I can't help but be wooed by her character, by the character, because the actress is just so magnetic of a screen presence.
The writing and performance, you really got the sense of like, okay, this is a character who is all about, this is a joke, almost feels like we're all about family kind of thing. It's like, oh, Star Wars.
It's about family.
It's about family, because she's got problems with her father, problems with dead mother. She's basically integrated herself in her friend's family, so she almost feels like a second big sister to...
Yeah, she's an only child too.
Yeah, only child, that's another point. And you really, like, before even the supernatural thing comes in, you see the masks that she puts on around all these different characters. Like, when she's with Riley and picking him up, she's like cool, big sis kind of character. When she's with her friend, it's like, oh, teenage girls. When she's with her ex-boyfriend, it's like, oh yeah, we're just friends. She's got a dynamic with their mum. And you even get a little bit of what other characters think of her, like the people that own the hand. Like, oh, she's not cool, but then like when she gets into doing the hand thing, they're like, all right, we can get with this. So she's very well established, all in a pretty short span of time, the whole beginning part of the film.
What we get to know about her when she's not having to perform for her peers and her friends and her family is that she's incredibly lonely. She holds the boy's leg. She puts her arm up against it when she's asleep, when she's trying, because she wants connection. She's desperately in need of that connection that she had when her mother was around. We see her TikToks and her videos of her and her mum, and it was this really symbiotic relation. They were almost the same type of person in a lot of ways from the brief glimpses that we got. And that's the thing too, like, we're only seeing the mother from the point of view of the grieving daughter. Who was the mother? She's more than that. She's more than what Mia thinks of her to be. And that's why when an event like this happens, it can be really it can just destroy those around you, because people perceive one another through their own lenses. And for Mia, it's like her mother was this happy, passionate, vibrant person, and then for the dad, there was more going on with your mother there. And I've been having to hold this from you because I know that you had this ideal of who your mother was, and I didn't want to ruin that for you. And it's a real it's a great dilemma for like a family drama, and that could be a family drama in itself. And that's when you throw in all of the fantastical, and that's really what makes a good horror movie work, is if you can strip away the demonic, and if you can strip away the ghouls and goblins and ghosts, and there's still a story that you are emotionally affected by, that's how you get good genre material. It's not just horror, but you do that with sci-fi, you do that with fantasy. You have to have a core story there that we can ground ourselves with. That's not always applicable. You don't need that all the time, but we've done David Lynch movies on the podcast before, right? Like, we've done David Lynch projects on the podcast before, and people sometimes get too distracted by all of bells and whistles and dream escape stuff. But like, at the core of his stories, there's an emotional anchor there. And that's what I really appreciate about Talk to Me, especially for first-time filmmakers. They could have just gone with the the whole movie being set pieces of the scene of Mia possessed, and she's like throwing herself around, or when Riley gets possessed, he's banging his head and trying to pull his eyeball out. Like, you could easily just have that be the movie. I mean, that's what the new Exorcist movie seems to be. And see, there's another one, The Exorcist, the original story. You can get rid of the exorcism, and it's still a story about a mother trying to help her daughter. That's what you get out of it.
Yeah. No, I think the themes are handled quite well. We've obviously got some heavy themes there. You've got suicide, depression, drug use, all those kind of things, and you've got a bit of, teenage trying to find themselves and fit in with the peer pressure of feeling lonely and out of place, and the things that you'll do to seem cool. I think it's touched on, with the younger kid with the smoking, comments, and then you've got obviously the I'll be first to do. I'll grab the hand. I'm feeling awkward and feel like I need to impress everyone that that I'm not worthy of that attention or any of those thoughts. Even for I don't know if it's their first, not their debut film, of course, but obviously they've been making short films for a long time, and I think they handled it quite well for it to for their first kind of open international debut. I can see why it was so popular at the South Australian Film Festival for the 20 or so people that were probably there. So yeah, it was great.
It's got a good ensemble. You know that there are people who need to, and this is a strange thing too. Barely any deaths in the movie, really. There's like one at the beginning. Even the person who gets stabbed at the beginning is alive.
Yeah, that was a surprise.
That was a surprise.
He's a tradie. He's
strong. He's strong.
He shrugged it off. He is strong. He is fit. And obviously our main character gets it in the end, but not really like there's a lot of maiming and injuries and pain. And I was actually expecting Riley to die because I appreciate that this movie doesn't hold its punches. It's like, yeah, we're going to fucking brutalize the children in the movie. So just expect that. There were no, and there's a technical animal death with the kangaroo thing, but it's not like they stab the dog or anything. They set up the dog so much in the movie. I was expecting something bad to happen to the dog because they do that in movies. The kissing scene, of course. The most tender, romantic scene I've ever seen in a movie.
The closest two characters get in the whole film.
It is the closest two characters get in the whole film. Yeah.
Well, I think you're forgetting about the feet sucking, but sure.
I mean, the kissing of the dog had a tongue going down another's throat, so I think that's pretty...
I think I sit corrected.
You sit corrected, and now you stand
It's an excellent use of gross out moment. I think that's very much stuck in my mind since walking away from the film.
The Catholic boy is kissing the dog.
Oh no, I liked Riley as a character. They set him up nicely as like the young innocent one who wants to do more, and that's an archetype you see a lot. But they did it. They fleshed him out, and the performance I think is really good too.
He like from the beginning, he seemed like, oh, this is our main character, I guess.
Yeah,
they play with that.
They play with you with that, and it's like, oh, he's going to be the secondary main character, and he is in a lot of ways. He's the victim of the movie.
You mentioned it before, but when he's in the hospital, like he's like a melted face away from being like the toxic Avenger. That was horrifying.
He looked rough, didn't he?
Yeah.
When he started banging his head again, when he woke up and he was like hitting the back and the tile breaks and he's like licking the blood. It's very gross. This movie's very unflinchingly gross. There is some stuff that I don't care for. They get people in and out of hospitals real easy in this. And I know
that was one of the big ones.
And it's like, okay, they're in Adelaide. Adelaide's still a city-like area. They're not in like some really small country town.
It is a capital city of Australia. One of them.
Yeah, and one of the mothers works there. So it's like, yeah, I think all the nurses would be like, yeah, because she's a nurse, right? The mother's a nurse? I thought she was.
Was she?
I couldn't remember.
I couldn't catch what she was.
Maybe I misinterpreted. I thought she worked. She was so familiar with everyone there that I assumed, and she works weird hours. So I was like, oh, you know how movies work, where it's like parent works weird hours like that because they're.
I guess that is 24/7 job.
Maybe I'm mistaken.
I didn't catch what her job was because the details of her job never really factored in. It was just that she's like the times.
She was annoyed, but that was weird. They kept getting people in and out of hospitals so much. The ending of it, where our main girl somehow managed to unhook him from a million different things,
get him into a wheelchair,
sprint
him across the car park.
Yeah, across the car park.
I know she's possessed in a way, but I don't know if the movie said she has super strength and speed, because she managed to get all of that happening real fast. Like, the mother must have left, realistically, the mother must have left Mia in there for 2 hours because it's like so ludicrous, and she's screaming. When she's screaming, and no one thinks maybe I should go in there.
When she brings in the nurse and says like, "Oh, where's my son?" I was expecting the nurse to have like a reaction of like, "Oh, well, that lady took her there and she's trustworthy," but it was like, she should be here. It's like, oh, you don't even know.
Yeah.
I thought it would at least be...
I found that more realistic than, a random woman took this obviously comatose boy.
It's more realistic, but also it goes with the whole thing of, like, no one saw them taking the body out.
This is the problem. They needed the ending, and so they have to reverse engineer things, but it's like, for everything being as pretty realistic as possible, especially when it comes to the actual people we're spending time with, that was the moment where I'm like, come on.
With me, it was that moment and basically the two scenes where possessed Riley is like injuring himself. Like I kept saying, like restrain him. Like people weren't trying to restrain him in like the house.
Yeah,
they were just like kind of letting like guys. You guys know you guys are good at restraining.
And again, that's why Jade was great. She did one of the smartest things I've ever seen in a movie, which is she put her fucking arm and hand over the thing he's hitting his head against, and she like fucked up her hand doing it. But I'm like, thank you, Jade.
She entered the room, immediately saw something was wrong. Was like, oh fuck.
Yeah. What happened to those two fucking drug dealer characters? One of them is like a full-grown man. Like, he's so huge. He's like a giant Maori guy, and he did nothing to stop this.
His role is literally to restrain. It's like, do it.
I'll give the second one some leeway.
Yeah,
because
their job's to blow out the candle.
The sister, because you're talking about the second one where it was just the sister looking after Riley, and he flipped out and
in the hospital bathing scene.
In the bathing scene. That's another scene. Yeah. I'll give that one leeway because it was just her. He just bit her fucking hand, and it was like pretty brutal. And it's a slippery room, like it's tiles and everything. And she did try, but it's like, and also it's like
she was also scared.
She's also like a teen girl having to deal with like a.
That one I can buy a little bit more. Yeah.
Like, that one's tough. Like, that one's easy. Like, that one I can forgive because it's, like, physically the environment is tough to do it in. But I agree that the big scene where they're doing the big possession, I'm like, come on, I know you got the belt, but... Geez.
Yeah, I know you guys were impressed by how this was going before, but at this point, like, big guy, your job is to restrain.
It is strange. In movies like this, you have characters and they're meat. You look at them like, oh, they're going to get brutalized or killed in some way. When we did Friday the 13th last year, it was like that's what the movie was. Like, that character, Kevin Bacon, isn't a character. He's just meat. And I thought these two guys with the hand, or you've got the Riley's dipshit friend, and even Jade's boyfriend, I was expecting them like, oh, they're the bodies. And then they're not. And I found it okay, but in a weird way I was kind of annoyed because those exact characters I mentioned disappear from the film. Like, I can't tell you what happened to them.
Well, the Riley's friend absolutely disappears once the possession thing happens, and I guess that ties into the whole thing of like, oh, they weren't really that close. Like, he was even joking in the beginning, like, I need a new best friend.
Yeah.
The boyfriend, weirdly enough, does come back. Like, when because he was kind of set up as like, oh, he's the Catholic one, so be really fucked up things must happen to him. And like, yeah, when he was possessed, he was like doing really sexual stuff. And then he storms out, but then in the montage, he's back.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, I guess he chilled out. And he was throughout the film still there, but like,
he did stuff, but then ending wise, I didn't really feel much of a...
Like, he was, like, even after the feet sucking thing, he was still with the group in like the scenes, but at that point, he stopped really contributing and he was just like, supporting characters.
I think it got to the point where Jade had finally clocked onto the fact that there might be something happening between her boyfriend and his ex-girlfriend. Like, oh, you were sleeping together. I think it was the scene where like, she pretty much was just like, yeah, okay, don't touch me. That's the relationship's over. That's the last time we see him.
Yeah.
And I think that's an interesting thing that brings on the Catholic vibe, that he had the whole sexually repressed, kind of thing going on with the dog. And there were a few characters that kind of disappeared. fairly quickly.
And we get little hints of things, and we don't know if they're just spirits playing tricks or if it's true. Like, is the boyfriend, is he gay, perhaps? Because they kind of make little references like, you make him soft, and he doesn't actually like your type. Or is he just being mean to that specific girl? Is that how he just feels about that girl, but not Mia? Like, is he, the Catholic thing is something that I actually didn't really think too much about. But the more you keep bringing it up, Bartek, the more layers it adds to that individual player in this story, because he is really the only one with a spiritual background in any of this. But he's not like, oh, I can't do this, because no, he's like,
Well,
a teen dude.
It's never confirmed by him. He doesn't say. He never says it.
No, but it is something put on him.
It's
as
like,
a
yeah, well,
character.
when he gets possessed, like, he gets possessed by the most ironic spirit that could possibly be.
The most obvious one too,
Yeah.
like the classic like Exorcist, where it's like, your mother sucks cocks in hell type, the gross, and they're like, this one's a cunt.
And even before, like, they established in like the conversation with the mum, it's like, well, he's ultra Christian, he's still got a dick. And then, like, when the mum like is interrogating him, he's just like being genuine, like, I don't drink, I'm just here for the thing. And the mum's like, oh yeah, what's your plans? It's like, I don't know. He's like genuinely innocent.
Real
I saw.
smooth.
You're good.
Yeah,
You're good. You're good. She was great. I loved her. Miranda Otto is a great actress. She's been in a million things. She's always great. If you put her in, it's almost like you're certifying it as a genre movie. She's been in Lord of the Rings. She was in the Sabrina TV show recently. She was in What Lies Beneath. We did that last year.
Oh yes, you were saying that.
I was mentioning that before the pod. She's just one of those Aussie actresses that you just go, all right. That's the person in the movie that has a name. Like, everyone else are newcomers. They're all up and coming, or they've done some stuff. I'll actually say, like, I was reading some of the trivia, and there was like, things I didn't know. I was like, oh, okay, like this country banned the movie because there's like a trans actor in the movie. I'm like, oh, I didn't even know that there was a trans person in this movie before reading that trivia point. And then I look up that performer, and they've had a very extensive career. Like, they're in a bunch of TV shows and like really good roles. I'm like, oh, that's cool. Like, they're like in this thing and this thing. I'm like, oh, all right. And then I look up our main actress, and she has played very few roles, but they're very weird. And I just wanted to let you know, Bartek, about this. So the actress's name is Sophie Wilde.
Yeah.
Right?
I read that she started acting like this decade, I think.
Yeah.
She's like 4 years younger than us. So that's pretty
So
cool.
get this. Her name is Sophie Wilde. She was in a movie after this one called The Portable Door, which has Miranda Otto in it.
Mhm.
And she plays a character named Sophie.
Okay.
And then after that, she was in a TV show where she plays a character named Sophia.
Mm-hmm.
And then after that, she's in a TV show where she plays a character named Mia.
Mm-hmm. Like this film.
Like this film. And that's literally her filmography.
So
She's
Sophie's
played
and
characters
Mia's.
named Sophie, Sophia, Mia, and Mia. Very weird. I'm sure one day she'll get more roles where they get characters without
Next
those
year
names.
it'll be Sophie Mia.
Yeah. Mia Fee.
It's in her contract, probably, that all the character names have to have some kind of play on Mia's.
But
Eventually she'll do a film where she's named like a forest, and the career will just completely tank.
that does add a layer to a movie as well. We've talked about this, in which you have a cast of unknown faces to you. Because, I mentioned it before, What Lies Beneath. It's just a small film in which it's Harrison Ford and Michelle Pfeiffer. And that whole film is about playing on the expectations of what you expect of those famous faces. Oh, Harrison Ford is a nice guy. So you're going to watch a movie where he's a nice guy, wink. And then it's like, oh, but they're all fresh faces. I don't know who any of them are, so I don't think about any baggage that comes with actors' previous roles other than Miranda Otto, and I just look at her as like, she's a mark of quality. Like, you have her in there, yeah, it's a real Aussie movie, like you have that in there.
Yeah, I haven't seen too many horror films, as we've talked about, so, I always look forward to Spooky Month, but it seems to be the stereotype is like, a lot of horror films will have a lot of, teenaged characters. They won't be very likable, and they'll kind of exist to die in the end, or as you said before, they're meat. So just even the simple fact that I can walk away from this film, liking a lot of the characters is a big plus.
Now, are there any other moments or observations or things people want to bring up before we put this to a close? Bartek, for you?
A visual I liked was in the hospital scene where they were doing, our favorite moment of like, oh, let's try to get the catatonic guy to do the
Yeah.
thing. When the little girl ghost showed the Riley spirit like
In like hell, basically.
in like hell, surrounded by all these people, it just looked like a big mound of flesh that he was stuck in. I thought that was really creepy.
It looked like a Rammstein video. Like a music video. That's what it made me think of. Like, is this Rammstein or Slipknot? The music video. I like that. Apparently, there's a director's cut of this movie that's 20 minutes longer, and there's like that hell sequence is like 4 minutes long. And I'm like, I would live there.
Oh wow!
I would live there for sure. I would live there for sure. Talking about great camera work scene, there was the sequence where she went to bed. And then she woke up and she's standing and she just walks across the room and she like hugs the boyfriend and they kind of like embrace and dance. And then you get the whole sequence of like the dad tearing down the door and getting the mother's body out of there. And I like just that too, because this film takes place, a lot of it in houses at nighttime. And so although we don't get a lot of like, ooh, it's actually physically dark because we're inside with lights on, there is this just kind of lacking light feel to this. So when you have that sequence where she wakes up and there's like a beam of sunlight, and it's like not natural sunlight, but like movie sunlight where it's like obviously dreamy. I just kind of love that aesthetic for the choice. And I'm a big sucker for when you make a thing that's usually one way and you turn it the other way. So it's like, oh, she's sleeping, but then she just throws the sheet off and she just is physically walking. I'm like, oh, I love that. I love that in theater. I love that in movies. It's just always a fun effect.
Yeah. And speaking of lighting, I love the fact that the film bookends us with a long single shot scene. It's like the scene of the party at the beginning and the hospital sequence at the end.
Yeah. Nelson, for you, any other...
Yeah, some really great creative film choices with the camera work. I feel like took a lot of opportunities to kind of go outside the standard expectation. I think in the end when they've got Riley and they're going down the hill towards the highway, and she's fully possessed and fully taken over, and she decides at the end to sacrifice herself instead. She realizes, I think it's implied, she realizes that it's whatever, she gets...
Yeah, I was going to ask what your interpretations of the ending are with that, because I couldn't tell. It's like, did she throw herself, did the spirits, or did her friend push her because she's like trying to kill her brother?
I currently, my understanding is that she... Well, obviously not though, but anyway, my understanding was that she clocked on to the fact that it wasn't her mum, because I think the spirit says, we will take care of him or whatever, implying that I think she initially was saying, I'll take care of me, and then she goes, we'll take care of her. And he's like, getting really into it. And that's when she decides to throw herself onto the highway. And what I thought was what really caught my attention was the shot they had inside the car when it's driving down the highway, and it's all like looks pretty real from, the body hits the car and then the car drives off and hits the side and the airbags deploy. And, from anyone that's actually been in a car accident, I felt that was quite realistic and another kind of horror kind of shock moment.
So stressful because they were like behind the really big van, so they couldn't even see what was coming.
And the van is dodging.
Yeah.
That's what makes them have to swerve and then hit her.
Such a short reaction time.
Because the van didn't even, like the truck in front didn't hit her. It swerved to avoid her, and then they hit her. And it's like, it's real. That was a real great shot.
And I love those kind of, it's not a Hollywood spectacular moment, but it's so grounded that it still has like an effect, a shock effect, which I thought was really, you didn't have to have that at all, but they decided to do it, and it had a great effect. Loved it.
Yeah, I don't know my, locked in, solidified interpretation of the end. I just think that she was tricked the whole way through. So the result at the end was not what she was intending. That's as far as I've gotten.
Did you pick up while watching it that there was a drowned spirit that was just manipulating her pretty much the whole way through? My reading is Riley did see her mum, and that was her mum.
Yes.
For a time, and then they went over because he was possessed for 2 minutes, apparently, and then like a bunch. And the idea is like he got multiple spirits in him, and that's why they're multiple fucking with him. But I thought that was really her mum when she was like, "I'm proud of you. Don't feel upset about what I did," because that lines up.
Yeah, because he
with
gets
the letter.
Yeah.
I don't think I necessarily caught on that it was the same drowned spirit the whole way through, but like I mentioned before, most of the spirits that we saw in the film, they looked very icky to me, so I did at least catch on to that visual element of them.
And then our main character became icky.
Mm.
She was all blood covered and burns on her skin from like hitting the asphalt and all that, and her fingers are all bent and twisted up, and she has her dream. She's living her dream where she looks in a mirror and she doesn't see herself. That was her nightmare.
Yeah, and I love.
Riley's like, I don't have nightmares.
I was thinking at some point, like, oh, it'd be kind of cool if we saw like the other side of the whole spirit possession thing, the handshake, and yeah, we get that ending sequence where like she sees the hand over the candle and she shakes it, and it's just these guys that we've never seen before. Clearly, a group of people that know each
like
other.
a hipster.
Yeah, like probably in like Spain or something or Mexico. And they say the lines and she's shocked, like, oh my God. And it makes you wonder, like, oh, all those fucked up people that we saw before, because they looked creepy, we assumed that, we assumed that they knew what was going on, but maybe they were also not cottoning on to the fact that, like, what's going on here?
Yeah, exactly.
So it makes you question, like, are all of the spirits malicious? Are all of them confused as well? Or is like some are, some aren't? It's like, yeah.
Like with people, there's shades.
Yeah,
there's many different types.
Yeah, this film still has a fear of the unknown factor because we don't have all the answers.
And the ending is a great. The character has paid for their sins, and now they must live in the torment of the thing that they were chasing after. But also, from a filmmaking standpoint, it's like, oh, the cycle continues. It doesn't end. It's not like they smashed the hand and said, we ended the cycle, and now it will never be continuing. They could make another movie of this if they so wanted to. But if they don't, it is perfectly contained here. This is very reminiscent of things like Candyman and Hellraiser, where it's like you have your little story and it's done. You could do more, and they do more, and it's fine, but it doesn't ruin the sanctity of the first film, where it was just this thing in which it's left as something that could continue on. It's not like when we did Wish Upon, where Wish Upon has like a post-credit sting of like he finds the wish box and now it will happen again. Ooh, and it's like it's a sequel tease. While this again very much is a tapestry back into the main character's psyche and how that they are fulfilling their own self-destruction.
This hand thing has existed and continues to exist, and this film is following this group of people who have come across the hand.
And now, Nelson, you're gonna have to hear Bartek recommend a movie after your great recommendation, because this was a really great recommendation and a great one to cap off Spooky Month. This ties in with a lot of things that we've been doing during the month. We did The Black Coat's Daughter, which was the cinematic debut of a horror movie maker with Oz Perkins, the son of Anthony Perkins, the legendary actor, and that was like a slow burn movie character study. We did George Romero's Martin, and again where it takes the understanding of what is a traditional supernatural tale and bends it to do intensive character work. And we've been having a pretty good discussions on this Spooky Month with also like the is it real, is it not, like the supernatural elements are here to throw you in one way and then pull you in another, and I've just really liked how this has gone. And so when Talk to Me was recommended, I was like, oh, here we go, it's going to be like they're going to get the scene where the possessed body like levitates into the air and throws itself out a window, and we're going to have like kill count. Like, no, it's not really that at all. And so I was pleasantly surprised.
I really liked how the horror was something that the characters had to go to. It wasn't just something that existed and can get anyone. Yeah.
And so, Bartek, what is your recommendation for the next episode? Spooky Month is over, so you're going to recommend a non-spooky movie, of course.
Non-spooky movie.
And a foreign film?
Yes, we're on to my non-Hollywood pick. And I think I'm stretching it a little bit with this one.
Oh, no.
And also, it's good that we just had a film that, we all enjoyed, because this is a film that a lot of people really fucking hate.
Oh, no!
So, I am recommending a French film.
Oh, no.
But there's really... there's so many Hollywood actors in it that almost doesn't feel like a French film. And I had to look it up really carefully. And this is not a co-production with America, so it is a French film. And it's by a director that we've done a film on for the podcast when we did The Fifth Element.
Oh no!
So
we're doing.
So it's Luc Besson.
Oh no! Can I guess which one it is?
Yeah.
Are we doing Valerian?
No.
Okay.
No.
Thank you.
And you were
Thank you.
also
you.
you were saying before about how we've done films that like played with our notions of something. This is a film that
no, we're doing Lucy, aren't we?
We're doing Lucy.
I saw that in the cinema.
Same
back to back with Guardians of the Galaxy. And I'll tell you which one I liked more next week when we do Lucy. Oh, we should get Oliver on.
He hates Lucy.
That's why
so
we should get him on. You should contact him and say, hey buddy, next week we're doing this. Want to come on the pod? I haven't seen you in 5 years. Let's bring you back on. For Lucy, a movie that is very wild. It has stock footage in it, unironically.
But it doesn't have
animals.
Sophia Wilde.
No, you're right. It doesn't have... Thank you. Thank you. So we'll be talking about Lucy, the film in which Scarlett Johansson answers the question of if she got really, really smart, what would happen?
If she used 100% of her brain.
If she used 100%... If Morgan Freeman was in the same film twice that year, what would it look like? Because he was in that movie Transcendence with Johnny Depp, in which it was also like, I've increased my brain capacity so much, I'm becoming a computer. And Morgan Freeman plays like the genius science guy who's like, here's how it works. I'm Morgan Freeman. I like money. So we'll be talking about that. So, yeah, it's weird because I guess it is a French movie, right? Like,
yeah.
It's also like an Asian movie too, because there's like a lot of Asian actors in it too. So we'll be talking about Lucy next time on the pod. Thank you, Nelson, for so much for coming on, joining us, discussing a movie. It's been great to have you on here, and who knows, maybe down the road we'll have you on again.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me, guys.
Maybe
pleasure.
we'll recommend you a film.
Homework. I was never good with that, but I'll do my
Bartek,
best.
you were there. Was he bad with homework at school?
I never assigned him homework.
Yeah, but you were a fellow student. You could have seen, like, he would have been like, oh man, I'm not doing homework. I'm going to be too busy lighting up doobies.
Filming people on shaking hands.
You always did the drama homework.
Oh, yeah. Well, what was that?
You had to rehearse and things like that.
There you go. You were good at that.
Right.
So thank you so much, everyone, for listening as well. Thank you for tuning in to our 2023 spooky month and for listening to our podcast. We've been at it for a few years now, haven't we, Bartek?
Yeah, we just passed the 8-year mark.
8 lucky years. Mm-hmm. When we get to 10, if the world survives that phenomenon, we should really celebrate it with like a Paul Giamatti horror film. I don't know when he's done a horror movie, but I'm sure it's in... Sideways is pretty scary. He drinks wine a lot in there.
He's got like just under 2 years to make one for us to do.
Oh, I know one. He's in a movie called Morgan, which is Ridley Scott's son directed a movie in which it's... You remember that film Splice by any chance?
Not really.
Okay, it's kind of like Splice, but like if it was a sexy young lady. And Paul Giamatti's in the movie. This is what I know about the movie. Paul Giamatti's in it for like 2 scenes, but they're incredible scenes. So the basic pitch of Morgan is, what if we did a clone? Like what if we genetically engineered a lady, but she had psychic crazy powers? And they're like, let's bring Paul Giamatti in to be the psychiatrist to do a psych eval. But the thing is, for some inexplicable reason, Paul Giamatti plays it not as like a mild-mannered psychiatrist, but he plays it as if this guy is going through a midlife crisis and divorce, and he's asking all of these questions with the most amount of Paul Giamatti aggression you could do. And that's worth watching.
Well, speaking of Paul Giamatti, Ryan, we're almost a dozen away from 400 episodes.
So we're going to celebrate with the Nanny Diaries.
The Paul Giamatti, Nelson, just to explain, is our kind of like milestone actor. Like every time we hit an anniversary or like a milestone, we like do a Paul Giamatti film.
Because we started with a Paul Giamatti movie with Big Fat Liar, the Frankie Muniz film classic. And now we're going to end our podcast by saying thank you, Frankie, and thank you, Paul Giamatti. Thank you so much. And Bartek, thank you. Could you please remember to be kind to one another?
Well, if I forget, then I'll need the listening people to contact us on Facebook at Spit and Polish Presents and at Twitter/X at Spit and Polish, and to email us directly at spitandpolished@gmail.com.
If you have film recommendations, we add them to our list. We did not add Talk to Me to that list. We just remembered it. I don't think we wrote it in the list, but we remembered it.
No, I talked to Nelson and he told me talk to
but
that.
now
to me.
it wasn't added to the list, so I can't mark it off. You know, the list.
Add it to the list and mark it off.
It's not done. It's done. The episode's done. I'm not doing it. That's sacrilege, and you're going to Catholic prison, which is like regular prison, but worse, way worse.
A lot more dogs.
Is Catholic prison a prison for Catholics or a prison run by Catholics? What would you say? Catholic prison. If you heard that phrase, Catholic prison.
Run by Catholics, I'm assuming.
The Inquisition.
You know, in Prison Break, the warden...
By the way, Nelson, if you ever listen to this podcast, you got to really acknowledge the fact that Bartek has like 7 reference points. It's like GTA, it's like Prison Break is going to be Eurotrip, Final Fantasy gets brought up from time to time. You also do
it's been a while.
Saved by the Bell.
It's been a while.
Saved by the Bell. Keenan and Kel get brought up a lot as well.
When Rachel's around.
Yeah, but Keenan and Kel do get brought up a lot. Yeah, I've named 6. So
gotta work out.
So what is Prison Break's reference point for this?
So you mentioned Catholic prison. Do you want to know what the warden's name in Prison Break is?
Is he John Francis? What?
Pope.
Oh,
Warden Pope.
And is he religious?
I think so.
Is he friends with Theodore Bagarelli or whatever his name is? Bagado.
Teabag Theodore Bagwell? I don't know if Warden Pope... I don't know if Warden Pope's friends with the pedophile, though.
Nelson gave this look like that's not a real character's name. It is.
It's 2008 American TV show.
Prison Break, and that's how we end our
episode.
The guy
named Teabag, Theodore
Watch
Bagwell.
the TV series Prison Break, in which one of the lead actors wrote a film that we watched.
Yeah, Stoker.
Yep, a really good film that we watched. With Nicole Kidman being a freak.